It's time for Fort Worth Musical Moments. Join us now as Steve Marquardt takes a look at the music and the artists who made the city's vibrant musical legacy what it is today. Well, good morning and welcome to Fort Worth Musical Moments. Brent Adams along with Steve Marquardt. And Steve, today we've got a gentleman with us who's been entertaining crowds for decades. He's also recorded out of Nashville with some of the legends in the business. And today he's using his talents to serve the Lord. We can't wait to share all that with everybody. First of all, Steve, how are you doing this morning?
Doing great, Brent. Yeah, so happy to have Carl Vaughan on. We're way past due. Carl and I first met, I think, last August when Carl was kind enough to come to my CD release party at National Hall, and we just briefly got to meet that evening. And he's got a mutual friend in all of ours, Dina Wood. Dina's friends with everybody, and Dina is just a great person. And I know Dina and Carl are good friends. So yeah, let's bring Carl Vaughan in. We got a lot to talk about, and I'm afraid one show ain't gonna be enough.
Good morning, Carl. How are you?
Good morning, guys. I'm doing wonderful for an older fella.
We can see you. We can hear you. That's half the battle. So that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today on the show. We have been wanting to do this one for quite some time here. And, we want to kind of share your past and let folks know what you're up to today. And, as Steve alluded to in our preview video we did yesterday, you got your start at a very young age 4. How did all that come about for you? I
did. There was a man in Cleveland, Texas, by the name of Chester Odom. Now, Chester had signed with Capitol Records and had a big band, one of the bigger bands around in Fort Worth, Dallas, and he was playing all the time. And he heard me sing down in Cleveland one time. My school teacher used to drag me around, and he hired me to sing on his radio program when I was 4 years old, myself and my neighbor Ronnie Fisher, and we started singing on that radio program, and it just kind of blossomed from there. It seemed like every time there was any kind of music thing going, they would call me, and I would go sing my 2 or 3 songs, and then go play Cowboys and Indians out behind the venue there somewhere.
Were you a cowboy or an Indian?
Well, it depended on how big the guy chasing me was.
I always played with my brother and his friends, so they were older. So they always made me the Indian, or they would make me the lone cowboy and tie me to a stake and try to burn me.
Yeah, it's kind of the way it worked, wasn't
it? Well, you mentioned radio. As you were coming up, that was such a special era for country, Western swing, and everything on the radio. What do you remember about listening to those programs that were featuring those performers? What kind of influence did they have on you?
Well, being a live program, I didn't really get to listen to it. They had steel guitars and fiddles and acoustic guitars. They didn't have many drums back then in the studio, because most of the guys, when they got through, they would go to a different venue to play a dance that night. Now, I was included in that group. Now, my dad was a steel guitar player, mm-hmm. and it wasn't unusual for me to come home to school after I got up into the school age and have some of the Texas Playboys or the Light Brook Crust Doughboys or some of the Hank Thompson's Brazos Valley Boys, people like that sitting in the house playing when I would come in. And, of course, I was designated as the singer. And so I grew up singing all that stuff with all those different bands.
Wow.
I mean, that must have been sad. I can't say I ever came home from school to anything like that. That must have been something to walk into.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just to walk in and not know who was going to be there and know that I was going to have to change what I did to match what they were playing. It gave me a great foundation in that I didn't really develop my own style until I was in the 60s when I went to Nashville.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were doing stuff on the radio, but that was such a great time for so many others doing stuff on the radio. Do you remember listening to any of those other broadcasts, or who kind of influenced you along the way?
Well, I was influenced by a lot of different people. My stepdad, my dad, who was a steel player, he kept sending, he kept telling me to sing the melody. Quit worrying about phrasing like other people, and you sing you. And so he's kind of he's kind of the reason that I started developing a style of my own. And then when I got up and started playing out of these different beer joints, when I was going to college, I didn't imitate other people. That wasn't a big thing back then. It was you be different, so we'll have someone different to listen to. And that's kind of the way that developed.
As a vocalist myself, I did a little stint taking some vocal lessons way back in the early 2000s. A friend of mine gave me a couple of vocal lessons for a gift, and that was an interesting experience, working with a vocal coach. And of course, the first thing he said was, "You're doing it all wrong. You got to come from your diaphragm," and it was like learning how to walk all over again. And I finally learned enough to know that I just need to do what I do. But one of the things that I learned from that is that he called it the singer's curse, where you're the only one that can't really hear exactly how you sound, and then sometimes I'll record something or be performing and somebody will catch it on video or audio, and then I'll listen to it and I go, I didn't know I sounded like that.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I've always said, people have asked me, can you teach me to sing? I can't teach a person to sing. I can teach you to be true on pitch, and I can teach you how to breathe, and I can help your presentation, but I can't teach you how to sing. It's a natural gift.
Well, and that's kind of like some people you either have that meter, timing meter in you too, or you don't. And it can be a challenge working with folks that don't have a grasp of that, I guess. But
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
Well, you come out of Cleburne, Texas. Another guy who came out of there that caught the attention of folks originally performing out of KCNC out of Fort Worth was Ray Cheney. I understand that was a guy that you kind of crossed paths with a little bit.
Yes. Ray Cheney was in his second building as I actually met Cheney at the old Stagecoach Inn on North Main Street. And he kind of took a liking to me. I was still in high school. I could go down on weekends with my mom and dad and listen and sit in maybe. And I met some great players. And then when he moved to Crystal Springs Ballroom, I was up old enough and had been playing enough of those mafia-owned nightclubs on Jacksboro Highway that he hired me to come in and play on Monday nights. And we did that. And we found out later on, as we developed, the crowd kept growing, that he had Loretta Lynn on there Saturday night, and she set a house record. And we come in on Monday night, and we beat her house record on Monday night.
Wow.
That's the kind of following that we had.
You mentioned Crystal Springs Ballroom. What did you ever play there?
Absolutely.
When was that?
I grew up singing there on the weekends with Chester Odom's band. And then later on, Ray Cheney bought it and changed the name to the Stagecoach Ballroom.
Okay. And then that burned. That was right there on the Trinity River off of White Settlement, was it not?
Right. And when it burned, I lost a brand new amplifier in that fire.
Really?
Yeah.
So when did that burn? That was in the 60s, or?
Yes, it was. I will tell you one of the highlights of my life. I got a call from Ray Cheney on the latter part of the week, and said that he had a man coming in, a special guest, and he wanted me to come play bass for him because he wasn't sure his bass player could play what this man sang. And I happened to be off, so I went out to play bass, and it was Tommy Duncan, and he was the last performance before he passed away.
Wow.
So I got to play bass for Tommy Duncan on his final performance.
Man. Well, my brother, I don't know if you've met my brother, Mike Markward, but he's been working on this documentary film on the birth and history of Western swing. And
right.
He's one of the foremost historians for Western swing. He's really dove deep into it in all areas. But one of the things he's pushing for is to get some sort of historical marker for that area. Of course, now I think there's apartments there where Crystal Springs used to be. But he's wanting to get a marker put there. And then, if you're going to put a marker where Milton Brown died on Jacksboro Highway, I think that's the Walmart parking lot now. I'm not sure. Right across from the old Avalon Hope Motel, which still stands. But anyway, Interesting stuff that you actually played there. That's a historic place. And was it a look from the pictures? It looks like it was a. I mean, was it a pretty good sized place or not so much?
What, the Crystal Springs?
Yes, yes.
Yes, it was a very, very big place. Probably seated 500 people, I would imagine.
Okay.
But they always did standing room only. And Chester Odom's band, he signed with Capitol Records, and they would play on Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon. Now, Sunday afternoon was kind of a family deal. Back then, families would get together and bring their children out. And so I would get brought in up there, and I would sing with the band there on the weekends.
Well, and then you mentioned the Jacksboro Highway corridor, so to speak, and all the, I call them cut and shoot and run bars there that and dance halls like the Rocket and all the, that Rocket building still stands. They still have the sign, but it's now like a automotive junkyard or something. I don't know. There you still see remnants of those places there. But that's just a part of, of many things that make Fort Worth's past so colorful when you compare it to other cities like Dallas. And, Fort Worth just has, I was telling somebody who's working for Taylor Sheridan, they're doing a new series on the oil business, and it's based in Fort Worth. Billy Bob Thornton's in it. And I told the guy, he's a set director, but I said, if y'all looking for story ideas, you don't have to make anything up, because Fort Worth's facts are a lot more interesting than any fiction you can ever come up with.
Boy, that's the truth. I used to tell people, I put myself through college working those beer joints out there on the Jacksboro Highway. We're talking about Bonanza and Ponderosa and the Western Village and the Hawaiian Village and Coconut Grove, Ma and Pa's Buggy Wheel. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And it was one of those things where I told people you had to cut your way in and shoot your way out.
Yes.
It's a pretty rough part of the world, but I will tell you, most of them were owned by the mafia. And if the mafia liked you, they weren't going to hurt you.
Yeah.
I played one place out there called the Midnight Club. It was in Saginaw, and it didn't start till 12:30 at night and closed at 5 in the morning. And we worked there 7 nights a week one time. And there was an old boy by the name of Zach. He worked for the mafia, and he had a Colt 45 1911 on each hip, pearl handled, and his job was to sit up by the stage and make sure no one hurt us. So he was there 7 nights a week as a bodyguard for us.
Well, it's a little sidebar here, and we'll get back on track. But one of our generous hosts, the guy that kind of talked me into doing this program to begin with, Larry O'Neill, is a longtime Fort Worth resident. I mean, he lived here his whole life. And Larry's got that Fort Worth Memories Facebook page, which has, like 200,000 members. He's quite a historian. He's got a museum that he's built with all these artifacts. But his father was a collections guy for those guys that you're talking about back in the 40s, 50s, and worked with Binion when he was down here doing his thing, and operations. And literally, Larry's in his garage, his warehouse. He's got a Lincoln Continental that his father bought. His father left Fort Worth for a while for his own health's sake, because he got crossed with some of those guys. And then he decided he wanted to come back and be with his family. And he just bought this Lincoln, was sitting at a red light. And somebody pulled up next to him and shot him and killed him in that car. And Larry's got that car in his warehouse, still has the bullet holes in it. So,
wow. Pretty dangerous part of the world.
Yeah, it is. Larry wouldn't mind me telling that story, because he tells those stories all the time. He's not bashful about that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
they get through college, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
He had brought up Tommy Duncan earlier. I know, kind of looking into the history of Ray Cheney. He'd brought in Willie Nelson and Al Dexter, Porter Wagner, Jim Reeves, and Bobby Bear, folks like that. Also was going down the rabbit trail, Steve, researching about this. One of the radio stations that he had played on was KXOL there out of Fort Worth, and they had a legendary disc jockey. Any ideas who it may be?
You asking me or Carl?
Yeah, both. Whoever wants to.
Well, I know who it is, because you told me earlier, but
you ruined the whole setup, Steve. We got to work on our timing here.
I know. But
KXOL produced quite a few jockeys. One of them, I think, that worked there a short while was Bill Mack, and there's also oh goodness, what was his name? He was on announcer for the Louisiana Hayride. Am I getting close?
No, this one I'm thinking of went on to comedic stardom, working with Carol Burnett and also on McHale's Navy.
Wow, Tim Conway.
You got it, Tim Conway.
I would have never guessed that. I could guess Don Day. I remember Don Day so well, but
Steve, you were supposed to act stupid when I.
Well, I don't have to act stupid. I don't have. That's not an act.
I never got to meet the man when he was on radio there.
Yeah, that was your history lesson for the day that I found when we were.
Some interesting trivia. You never know. You never know.
So you talk about working in Fort Worth, a couple of the other places that you frequented, Panther Hall and also Rustler's Rest Slide.
Right. Rustler's Rest, we started that in 1964, and it was nominated for Nightclub of the Year 8 years in a row. That was the only nightclub at that time that did that. And we were licensed for 550 people, and it wasn't unusual for us to run 1,200 people through there in one night. And we had some major contracts that came out of that. We had 4 singers. There was myself and Jerry Max Lane, and Billy Stack, and Eddie Lynn. And we would swap 2 and 2. 2 of us be on the road, 2 of us there at the house. And we would book Nashville stars in. The first time I got to back Charlie Price, he was booked in there. Roy Drusky, Bob Luman, just on and on and on and on. And we would make those contacts. And then whenever I was in town, Panther Hall would have me and the band come over, and we would open the Cowtown Jamboree and play the first hour of the dance when they had the big stars coming in. We backed a lot of them. We backed Wynn Stewart and Freddie Hart, different people like that from the West Coast. We would back them, and we did shows with Bob Wills, and we did shows with Hank Thompson there. So we were kind of a almost semi-house band, you might say.
So you played with Bob Wills then? I mean,
I played with the Texas Playboys.
Okay.
Bob Wills had gotten sick, and a man by the name of Carl Johnson, who owned a trucking company in Fort Worth, bought the name Texas Playboys. And Bob and Leon Roush was fronting the band and playing bass for Bob. And Carl took the bass away from Leon Roush and hired me to play bass until they found a permanent bass player. So I played bass with them. Actually, at one time, at that period of time, there were 3 different Texas Playboys band in Texas. There was this one out of North Texas, which was Leon Roush. Later, Tommy Alsop joined him.
Yeah.
Then there was one in East Texas out of Longview. The guy's name was Casey Dickens. Casey was the only person. He was a drummer, Bob Wills' drummer, and he was the only one that had written permission to use the name from Carl Johnson. Used the name the Texas Playboys. And a guitar player that worked for Bob went to work over there, and they started a band there at the Rio Palm Isle, and they did shows as the Texas Playboy. And then there was another one in Houston, excuse me, that was started by Herbie Remington, who played steel for Bob Wills.
Right.
So Johnny Patterson was the guitar player in Casey Dickens in Longview, and then Leon was over here in the Fort Worth area. And later on, Tommy Alsop joined.
I had no idea that there were three iterations of that band out there.
Right.
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 Does Mike do that? Or are we going to have to revise the whole movie now?
I bet you Mike does not know that because, based on the documentary, it was a lot more of a linear thing, the way it was presented. That was, when Bob got sick and then passed away, the torch was passed to Leon Roush, and then Leon then passed the torch to Tommy Alsop, and then Tommy Alsop passed away in when was it? 2000 teens, I guess it was. What hadn't been that long, and then Jason Roberts was kind of handed the mantle. But
Jason Roberts is good one to carry it on too.
Absolutely, yeah. He does. He's very faithful. He was doing that a ride with Bob, that kind of a stage show for quite a while. Jason's an interesting guy because he played with the Sleep at the Wheel, cut his teeth there on Western Swing. But Jason also toured with Van Morrison for a few years. So,
Oh yeah. When I was sitting home on my ranch, I raised quarter horses for 30 years, and I was sitting home on the ranch one day, and my phone rang, and it was Tommy Alsop, and he said, "We're in the studio recording, and we want you to come sing sing this particular song." So I loaded up in the truck and drove down there to the studio, went in, and they let me record "You Don't Care What Happens to Me" with them, with the Texas Playboys. So I had a good time on that one.
I'll be darned. I remember when Tommy also had that gig. I guess I don't know if he owned the club, that New West Club out on Camp Bowie.
Right.
Back in the 80s and 90s, I think. And he was the house band there. And they had people like Mo Bandy and those guys come through there. And a friend of mine played with him for a while, Don Grantham.
Sure.
But then you talk about Rustler's Rest. My best friend growing up, his stepfather, or his mother's boyfriend, I should say, was a bass player for Red Steagall, and they played a lot at the Rustler's Rest, I remember.
Would that have been Daryl Hicks?
Daryl Hicks, that's right.
Yeah, I've known Daryl since the 60s out on Jacksboro Highway.
Yeah, Daryl was around for a while. Is Daryl still with us? I think he might have passed away.
No, he passed.
I don't know. You probably knew his girlfriend at the time, B Guthrie or Blanche. She went by B or Blanche. Anyway, she was best friend. Huh?
I knew some of. I think B was his cousin.
Well, he. I don't know. They had. Well, then there was something going on there.
That makes another story.
But they had. B's best friend was Sammy Smith, who was always coming over to the house, and
Sure.
If I wanted to touch celebrity, I'd have to hang out at my friend's house. So.
Right. I met Sammy when I was with Monument in Nashville. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my favorite part of this picture here is the sign in the back that says "Sorry, no sit-ins." Was that a big deal back then?
Yes. Every night, 6 nights a week, we had people come up and want to sit in. And if we knew them and knew they could sing, we could kind of work around that, but we must have had 30 to 50 people a night want to get up and sing with us.
Wow.
So we had to put the quiet, kind of quieten it down just a little bit. And for some reason, it seemed like that we'd have a lot of these producers and people would come down from Nashville for a weekend and visit, and they thought if they got up and sang, somebody would hear them and take them back to Nashville. But it didn't really work that way.
Well, ultimately, working 6 days a week there, that's how you got discovered and wound up in Nashville.
And that was all unintentional. I was going to school to be a mechanical engineer.
Wow.
At UTA. And in 1966, a fella came down, and he was a producer from Nashville, and said they wanted to know what all the stink was about that nightclub. And he took me back to Nashville, recorded 3 songs, and they're on the new CD I just put out, the 50-year CD. Nothing came of it. And 2 years later, they sent another man by the name of Daryl Glenn. And Daryl Glenn told me where I could find a song, and I had to go take the songwriter fishing to get the song. And I did that, and it became a hit. And I had after I recorded that session, about 10 o'clock at night, offers from the 5 major labels by 10 o'clock the next morning.
Wow.
So it's just out there, but you got to do something to draw their attention.
And you ended up signing with Fred Foster and Bob Moore's Monument Records. How did you end up making that decision?
They offered the best deal. It was a long-term contract, 3 years with 2 one-year option. Most of those big labels, they don't want to tie you down. They don't want to get tied down with you with a commitment. They'll put that song out that you've got, and if it hits, then they'll talk about a contract. But if it doesn't hit, then they just leave you there where you are on the side of the road.
Right.
It's pretty cutthroat business. It really is. And I figured out. I learned how to produce. I learned how to build recording studios and sound equipment while I was up there. So I came back to Fort Worth and started doing that and did quite well. And I found out a long time ago you don't have to be in Nashville to be a big singing star. You can do that right here in Fort Worth, Dallas Metroplex.
Yeah. Fort Worth has become for traditional country and kind of music that we all love. It's become the kind of the live music capital of the world.
Sure.
And the difference between Fort Worth and Nashville is people dance in Fort Worth.
Absolutely.
That is true. That is true.
I tell you, we've been talking a long time. How about we let the folks dance a little bit in their living rooms if they want to? Let's share some music here. This is one that you cut some time back. Sounds Like Trouble. Tell us about this song.
Sounds Like Trouble. Goodness gracious. That was one of the sessions that I went in to do, and they brought me the song in. At that particular time, I actually went in to record the original one, You Gave Me a Mountain. And my producer, Jim Malloy, who had just worked with Jim Reeves on a bunch of his hits, found this song and said, let's do this one too. And I'd never heard the song. And they played it through one time, and I recorded it, and this is the only take we did of it.
Such a good song. Let's let everybody hear it now. This is Sounds Like Trouble.
Picked up my phone to check the time, and I heard voices on the line. I couldn't help but hear each word, and from the things I overheard, sounds like trouble to me. I heard someone say, what a shame, and then I think I heard my name. If it's true, the things they said, looks like bad times are ahead, sounds like trouble to me. Sounds like big trouble coming around. Sounds like big trouble on my side of town. If everything they say is true, without a doubt I'm losing you. The gossips say you've made new plans and left me out, I understand. Sounds like trouble to me. Sounds like big trouble coming around. Sounds like big trouble on my side of town. The conversations that I hear says that the end is very near. If everything they say is true, without a doubt I'm losing you. Sounds like trouble to me.
With all the cracks and the pops, that's country music right there, folks.
Pretty country.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And you had the opportunity to record at the famed Bradley Barn with Harold Bradley. And I started looking at this list of musicians, Jimmy Day, Wayne Moss, Jerry Shook, Junior Husky, Buddy Harmon, and of course the great Hargus Pig Robbins, who played on so many iconic hits for everybody from George Jones and Dolly Parton to all Patsy Cline's biggest hits, Merle Haggard, on and on and on. What was it like getting to record with those guys?
Yeah, they were amazing. They were so creative that they'd walk in singing the song and they would find something different to play on it. Even they'd recorded it 50, 60 times that week. Mm. They could create so rapidly.
What kind of pressure did that put on you as a vocalist to come in there knowing that?
Well, the first time I went in for a monument session, I was actually freelancing. I'd already been through another studio, and it didn't come out, and I was terribly disappointed. But I walked in there, and they're set, ready to play. Pete Drake, wow. Pete Wade, Elvis Presley's drummer, DJ Fontana, Pig Robbins, Charlie Daniels, and Jerry Shook and Bill Linneman, and the backup singers were the Hardin Trio, and they had just had a million-selling record on Tippy Tippy Toeing. So that's where I learned it was the music business. Had no bearing on what you had been doing. It was what you did at the moment to make the next project sound good.
Right. But the fact that you were in there with those kind of names as opposed to five no-name guys that nobody had ever heard of, that had to mean something pretty special to you.
I was going around getting autographs like a teenager.
And what time period was this again?
This would have been in 1968.
Oh, 68. Okay.
Yeah. That was the first session I did. And I did that at the old Columbia studio, which was the Quonset hut, which was the original Bradley studio.
Okay.
And they had cut hundreds and hundreds of number one songs. That was George Jones' favorite studio.
Well, Nashville's a whole different place today, isn't it?
It sure is. Yeah.
You know, my partner in Clarksville Creative Sound, Kurt Ryle, sounds like y'all went down similar paths, but he came, a while after you did, but y'all kind of hooked up with the same people. Kurt did some stuff with Charlie Daniels. He toured with and was a producer for Mel Tillis for a while. Was with Vern Gosdin. Wrote some songs for George Jones, and but his stuff was in the 80s, I believe, late 70s, 80s, something like that. But he showed me around Music Row and pointing out all these places, what they once were versus what they are today. Anyway, interesting stuff. So Nashville is, I think the thing about Nashville is kind of sad because they're kind of banking on their past instead of what's going on there today.
Yeah, it was amazing how you could get a group of guys that were good players and put them in a room and put a mic in there and cut a recording, cut a hit. It was because of the way they played.
Just do it live. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've preached that down here so much. We got a group of guys we use in the studio, and every time we turn out, we're extremely fast, and every time we put one out there, it's a hit for somebody.
That's why I think you would love Kurt. We got to get y'all together because he's the same way. He doesn't mess around. We cut 10 of 12 tracks on my new album. We laid all the music down in one day. I was amazed, and Kurt was able to direct that whole thing very efficiently and write out all the charts on the fly. And he uses a hybrid of analog and digital because he believes that digital just compresses things too much and you lose something there.
Well, I'm very anxious to hear this project.
Yeah.
I like good music. You can probably tell looking at me. I got 300-400 albums, vinyl albums up here behind me. So,
well, I look forward to you and Kurt getting together. I'm sure y'all can share a lot of similar stories. But
I'd love it.
Yeah.
What all's in that collection behind you?
Oh goodness, it's got stuff starting from the big bands in 1948 all the way up through the 70s and 80s and 90s. A lot of country, some of the big band. I've got some 45s or some of the old pop records, and and then I learned a lot. I used to go visit different shows when I was out doing the music business. I never will forget. I went to one time. Little Richard was playing over on the east side of Fort Worth, and we got all excited. We had a show to open, and then we had some time off, so me and the whole band loaded up and went over to the Little Richard show. And we went in. And it was just us, about 10 people, and he come out, and he had the bluest eyes I've ever seen in my life. And he come out, and he got very disappointed because it wasn't a full house, and he played like 2 or 3 songs and stood up and said, "I'm sick," and went back. So that was my extent of seeing Little Richard. I've always admired his work, and I still do. But when you rate your performance by the number of people in your crowd, you start out being a loser.
Yeah. If
you've got one person out there that paid to get in, that person deserves your 100% performance.
Absolutely. You never take it. If one person's willing to pay to hear you play, to me, that's a privilege,
Absolutely.
I'm always amazed that anybody would spend their hard-earned money just buying one of my CDs.
I did hear one guy that did a foolish thing back when I started writing gospel music. He recorded one of my songs that was a really, really good song and had been a hit for another people. And he went to where'd he go? He went to Georgia, Atlanta, rented the Peachtree Auditorium, and was going to go in there and be a big star. And there was only 3 people showed up. And you know, that people do things like that. You don't realize it's a process of building. You know, you don't just jump out there and say, okay, I'm a big star. It's a process of getting there.
Steve,
And I'm younger. Most of them won't listen.
Yeah.
Sorry, I turned my ringer off. I guess
you need to take that.
No, I think there's telemarketers have realized that I'm awake. I think so. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Well, while we have a stop down here in the action, just want to say hi to everybody who's watching. We got so many people jumping on here. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch here. A lot of familiar faces. I see we've got Joe Rucker on here saying hello from Nashville. Hey, Joe, how you doing, man? A great artist in his own right. Really plugged in. Really appreciative of the traditional country set here. So glad to have him on here.
See, we have our colorful friend from New Orleans, Louisiana, Johnny Angel, watching. He took us on a tour of the French Quarter not too long ago. But there's and you got a pretty big fan base, Carl, because there's a lot of people. We had a lot of people join the page when news came out that you were going to be on the show. So we appreciate that. We appreciate you bringing along your fans and getting them acquainted with our show. And so we appreciate all of them tuning in.
Well, no, I know we have a very, very big following at our Cooke County Cowboy Church Sunday morning live stream, and I know a lot of those people are switching over today to watch here on your program.
Well, good. We hope that they stay, and you know, we got a lot of. We'll talk a little bit later in the show about some of the things we got planned here in Fort Worth. That, you know, if you're up for it, some of it'll involve you. We'd love to have you be involved in some of the things we're going to do as far as live entertainment. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the Cowboy Church. Before we get into talking about that specifically, talk a bit about. I'm really curious about. Dina was telling us a bit about kind of your conversion story and when you gave your life to Jesus and what that looked like.
Well, I'm certainly not ashamed of what I did or what happened. A lot of people they kind of look at it down their nose, but I was on stage at the world's largest honky tonk at that time, which was Panther Hall. And it was actually bigger than Billy Bob's. And it was 11 o'clock at night on December 30th, 1972. And boy, we were loud. I want you to know we were loud. And I had, you got to understand, I was raised in a Baptist church in Cleveland, Texas, but they never told me who God was. So I kind of got off in the country music business. They wouldn't let me sing gospel music. And I walked up to the microphone and started to sing, and I heard this voice. And I'll tell everybody this. I heard this voice, and that voice said, "What are you doing here?" And it was like they turned off all the lights in the place, and I saw everybody's face in there. And it scared me to my knees. And I spent the next 2 weeks reading the Gideon Bibles and the different hotels we stayed in for the next tours. And I gave my notice to Nashville, and I gave my notice to the band that I was going to quit. I had to go find out what this was. It wouldn't leave me alone. And that's when God called me into singing and writing gospel music.
Well, you know, Carl, I had a similar experience, a little different context. I wasn't up on stage. It was more of a personal moment for me, but it was a moment where I got to the end of myself and there was nothing left. I'd run out of lies and excuses and kind of got on my knees, literally, and prayed and surrendered to a God I didn't even know if I fully believed in. And He showed up. You know, and you know, and it's interesting because I grew up in the church. You know, I was a Lutheran. I'm still a recovering Lutheran, I say. and went through confirmation and all that. And so I could recite Bible verses, but it's interesting when you go through something like that. I don't know about you, but that Bible, when they talk about the living Bible, boy, the word comes alive.
Boy, they do.
And the neat thing about the Bible is it meets you wherever you are on your spiritual journey, and you can go, and as much as I've experienced in the last 23 years since that spiritual experience, I like to say, I feel like I've just barely scratched the surface. What about you?
Well, yeah, he had a purpose for me, and it didn't involve Vietnam. He kept me out of Vietnam. I kept missing the draft because I was working on gospel music, and I was traveling with a lot of preachers. They flew around to different towns and stuff, and I did a lot of that. And in the meantime, I was writing my own music. I had sat down before him and said, if you're going to use me, I don't want to sing these same songs everyone else is singing. I want my own songs. And if I can't do that, then I don't want to go serve you. And those songs started coming. And the first gospel song I wrote was nominated for a Grammy. It was recorded 2 weeks after I wrote it. And then I've been nominated for some more Grammys for different stuff I've written or recorded. And that's all God. I had nothing to do with it. I had a shot at all that in country music, and I couldn't get my foot in the door, even though I had to hit records. But when God gets involved in your life, then things start moving. They start moving, and it'll move just as fast as you're able to handle it.
Yes, you're right. That's interesting you say that. I was having this conversation with my wife the other day, and we've talked about this a lot. I call it being in the stream of life. In other words, you're in God's will because things just come to you effortlessly. The problem is most of us human beings, I should speak for myself. When my ego gets into play, I'm like that salmon swimming upstream. What happens eventually? That salmon's going to die of a heart attack because it's a struggle and it's confusion and pandemonium. Sure. But when you're in God's will, when there's no fear, there's no doubt, you have a clear sense of direction, and really you're just being moved. Don't you have that experience too?
Absolutely. We have I'm up here at this Cooke County Cowboy Church by accident. It was a total accident the way that I was contacted. I had retired, and I've raised quarter horses for 30 years. I sold the ranch. My wife and I were in our travel trailer and traveling around, and she fell in love with this little town. And we stopped one day, and she went in and bought a house. So I either had to live with her in this house she bought, or I could live in the travel trailer. And I chose her. And ever since then, God has started moving up here for me to be involved in this church and spreading the word and doing some stuff. And there was a church starting, and there were 6 people. A little country church, and it started growing. It got up to 8 people, but they didn't have anyone to lead the singing. And the pastor had my phone number in his Bible that a lady had dropped in his Bible. I didn't know her. And he called me one day, I think it was the second week in December, 6 years ago. And I told him I'd help him for the first of the year, and I've been there ever since. Now we have grown from that 6 people to running 400 to 500 people on Sundays. We have built an arena that holds arena events, big arena events, 6 days a week. We do gospel operas, and Steve, I'll have to get you up to do one of these with us. And we've got one coming up in February. We have Lisa Lane coming, and Christy Kalen, and a young lady by the name of sorry, my mind went blank. Anyway, she's a young fiddle player. There's a champion.
I just got off the phone with her, Grace Partridge.
Grace Partridge, that is correct. Yeah, she's going to be here, and we have a tremendous band. I'll tell you, Steve, you wouldn't be ashamed to drag these guys on stage with you anywhere you go. They are some of the best. Well,
I'd love to. I'll come up for that event. I'm going to see Grace play in Mineral Wells Sunday. She's doing a deal out there, kind of an unplugged thing. We got her kind of in our sights to put together a really young group of Western swing players and for this TV thing that we're doing. But she seems like the real deal, and I don't know her that well. I've never met her in person, but she's a delightful young lady on the phone. Anyway.
Yeah, I've not met her either. I've met her, I talked with her on the phone, and I was very impressed with her. And I like to help hunt young people. And so that's coming on February 10th. That's on a Saturday night at 7 o'clock.
You know, one thing that was refreshing about her, so she called me and I called her back, and she was driving somewhere, and she was, you know, real short with her answers. She goes, "I'm sorry, Steve," she said, "I don't mean to be unfriendly, but I need to concentrate on my driving. I'll have to call you when I stop." I'm like, well, that's refreshing. Most young people are on their phone and texting, and you know.
Sure.
So
I certainly enjoyed visiting with her, and we're looking forward to this. We have a good crowd on this, and the band just really moves. We got Kent Thompson's going to come down and MC this for us.
yeah,
You know, a lot of times we have ladies out of Nashville. We've had Diane McCall and DG Overby come down from Nashville, and we've had Sonny Burgess. I'm not Sonny Burgess, but we've had Jake Hooker and his fine band come through. And
oh yeah, Jake's great.
Yeah.
Jake has got a great story too. One that he loves to share about his path to God, to Jesus, you know, and he's certainly not bashful to talk about it. That's his ministry, you know. The music's
So
kind of a Trojan horse, you know.
That's what we do. And I'll tell you this too: on December the 13th, on Wednesday night at 6:30, my keyboard player, Bobby Connell, and I have decided that used to, when we were growing up, we'd all get together and sing Christmas music. Well, nobody does that anymore. It's like we got to have a program here. So we put the word out, and anybody that can sing or play, show up on Wednesday, the 10th of December at 6:30, and we'll let you get up and play and sing Christmas music with us. There's no form. There's no deal. We're just going to get up and do it and have a good time, like it was Christmas when we was kids.
And that's up at the church there.
The church, Cooke County Cowboy Church, right?
I'll have to make that. That'd be fun.
We'd love to have you. Yeah. And if you're a player and a singer and you want to get up and join us, just come on.
Well, I can sing. You know, I know how to play the guitar, but I was telling a friend of mine that I used to play with a lot. I said my guitar chops are at an all-time low right now. I've been focusing too much on the business side of this thing, and it's really.
You can come sing. I'll play for you.
Yeah. But I got to spend some time woodshedding on my guitar. But I would love to do that.
We're gonna do that.
That'd be great. I love those old. You know, the problem today, Carl, is a lot of those old Christmas songs that you and I grew up on some of them are politically incorrect now. So.
Well, you know what? We're not just gonna. Like I told the guys, we're going to do, Santa Claus is coming to town, all that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. We're going to do Christmas music as we knew growing up. It's not all just, it's going to be gospel, you know, if that's what you want to do. But we're not limiting it to that, because this isn't a church sanctified deal. This is a Carl Vaughan sanctified deal, and we're going to sing Christmas music.
That's right. Well, you know, and of course, Christmas. You know, the true meaning of Christmas is something we must never forget, and always carry that message. But that sounds like a lot of fun. Talk about getting in the Christmas spirit, just doing some old fashioned caroling, so to speak. That'd be fun.
Well, we're going to do that. And you know, one of the greatest highlights of my life, when I was with Monument, they called me. This was like in June of I forget what year. And said, listen, we're putting a Christmas album out and we want you to come sing on it. So I didn't know what I was going to sing. I didn't know what portrayed. And it was July, about 110 degrees. They put Christmas lights around in the studio, and they matched the 10 top artists with the 10 top songs, Christmas songs. And they chose me. I was their number one artist that year, and they chose me to sing White Christmas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's on that album, and I put that out as a single every year. And it's Country Christmas from Monument's the name of the album. They're pretty rare, but it's got Grandpa Jones and Billy Walker and, you know, a bunch of different people on it. But I got to sing White Christmas on it. I was so thrilled. That was my favorite song anyway. So.
Well, that means you're a crooner then.
Oh, one time maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have that one queued up, but I do have, excuse me, boy, another one queued up here. Jesus by My Side. I want to share that with people before we get out of here today. What can you tell us about that one?
That's the first gospel song I wrote after God got a hold of me, and it was recorded within 2 weeks by a big time gospel artist. Now, I hope the one that you got there is the one that we did live at one of our operas up here. Our gospel operas. I'm praying, and that's the one you got keyed up.
I think the one I have is an album version. We'll see here.
Okay.
But we'll roll this one now so everybody can hear it. This is Jesus by My Side.
And now, please make welcome my friend Carl Vaughan and the 4C Cowboy Church.
Hello! Y'all doing all right? Driving down the highway, singing and praising His name. Giving God the glory, 'cause nothing in my life is still the same. Thank God I'm free from the hell of my life's downhill ride. Everything is different now, 'cause I've got Jesus by my side. Everywhere I go, I'm always telling someone about my Lord. How He saved the world, what's offered to us all in God's Word. How He'll change your life, take away life's flooding tide. And how nothing bothers me, 'cause I've got Jesus by my side. Lonely for love in many years. You'll never see me frowning or crying, hurting tears. I have won over everything that Satan has tried. I could never do it if I didn't have my Jesus by my side. Yeah, but I can do it, 'cause I've got Jesus by my side. Oh, it sure is glorious to see all of you guys out here tonight.
Well, I stand corrected. I hope that was the one you were hoping for.
that was actually live off our stage.
Oh, okay.
And
I heard old H.D. Ainsworth bring him in.
Sir?
It sounded like old H.D. was MC in that one. Yeah.
Yes, he was, and that was a great time we had. That's a great band. That's our band up there that we have, and they just play all kinds of good stuff. And that was the first song I wrote that was nominated for a Grammy, by the way.
That's a great song. I love that. We need more of that kind of gospel music,
The songs I've written have been nominated and done through the years. Have been nominated for 4 Grammys and 1 Dove Award. And then I have one song that a band I was with, we were nominated as Band of the Year for a Grammy.
Mm. Yeah, a great song there. It gave me shades of Glenn Campbell doing "Gentle on My Mind," but
yeah.
Well, yeah, at that period, those chord changes, it's not exactly the same chord changes as Glenn on My Mind, but there was a big flush. There was one called Texas Tea, and I don't remember what all, but that was kind of a flush through at that time of that new era of that type of music, thanks to John Hartford.
So as I was going to,
you made me pull my guitar out while I started strumming along with it. So.
Good.
So as I was going through clips here, looking at things here as we start to wind things down here, I got to ask you about this guy hanging out to your left here. I got to ask you about the people you're hanging around with.
Okay. Which one do you want to know about?
On you to the left of the picture, far
that
left.
shady looking guy and that villain's mustache back there.
Mark Abbott?
I thought that looks more like Chuck
Steve Solomon right next to me. And that's Chuck Cusimano on my right.
That's what we were going for.
Yeah, there's Mark. Is Mark singing there?
Yes.
Okay. And who's the fiddle player?
His name's Steve Solomon. He works for Red Seagull quite often.
Yeah, and then you got Chuck back there. Mark and I got to be really good friends. He played fiddle on my first album, and we got to be pretty close friends very quickly. Right up until the time he passed away, and I treasure that. I wish I'd have known him longer, but what a great guy he was.
First time I met Mark Abbott, I had come back from Colorado. I took a year off and went to Colorado, and I wanted to write. So I went up and got a job on 3 different ranches at one time, part-time jobs. And I wound up writing cowboy poetry instead of music. Those green broke horses didn't like guitars on their back. So I had just write lyrics, so I wrote music. When I got back, I got a job over in the stockyards 6 days a week, just having fun. And Mark Abbott walked in late one afternoon and heard me. I've never met the man. Walked in, stopped, went out to his truck, brought his fiddle in, and he said, I want to sit in with you. And he's been sitting in with me up from that day forward. We worked so many things. He played on most of my CDs from the 1990s on, and we were a great team in the studio.
Yeah, he was a heck of a good guy, and of course we love Chuck Cusimano. He's been around a long while and very, very prolific songwriter. Playing somewhere just about every night. He does a regular gig out at Springtown at the R&R Center there.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
And the guy that plays bass for us at church plays bass for him there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clint Sturgeon. Yeah.
He plays bass for us up here at the church.
Yeah. He's a good fella. Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
So I'm digging through all the comments here, and I think a lot of these come from Dina Wood here, although for some reason it never shows her name on here. But one says, ask him how he met Diana. So we got to throw that one out there.
Okay. Well,
I don't know if I'm being set up for something here or not, but I'll throw it out.
That's fine. That's all over the country anyway. I used to go down to Big Balls of Cowtown about once a month, once every 6 weeks. I'd take a night off and go down there and just lean up against the end bar and talk to people. I'm a people person. If you're going to be out there in the music business, you better start meeting people and just keep it up. Just keep it up. Yep. And anyway, I sat up there, and she walked in. She had on a hat and jeans and this long blonde hair down to her past her butt. Walked through, and I speak to everybody that comes in, and she walked by, and I said, hi, how are you doing? And she just kept walking, and my friend standing there talking to me said, Carl, you have been ignored by a professional. And come to find out later, she was totally deaf in her left ear, and that was the ear that she had to me. And so that was my introduction to Diana. She totally ignored me, which I don't get ignored real well. So we kind of pursued it from there.
Nice.
Carl, I've been ignored by the best of them. So.
Me too, my friend. Me too.
So as we kind of wind things down here, what do you have left on the horizon here? What kind of projects are you looking at wanting to do, or anything else on your list? That,
you know what I do? I would love to do a real, honest to goodness Western swing album. The way I was brought up to play Western swing.
Well, I bet I know some guys that could help along that route.
Yeah, it's and the way I want to do it, it's like just stuff I hear from the inside of me, Like I said, I grew up I worked with the Light Crusty Boys one time, or a couple of times. I worked with Bob Will's Texas Playboys few times. I worked a couple of jobs with Hank Thompson's boys not when they were around, but they would come play and back me up. And So yeah, I and Ted Daffin's bunch when I was a kid, I got to sit in and sing with them once or twice, and I hear swing different than what's being swung now. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
And I want to get back in. The guys that work with me said I'm a great producer. I'm real fast. I portray what I want, and we get it done. And I want to go in. I don't care if I'm singing or not, but I want to go in and produce a real, honest to God, old time Western swing, not copy what somebody else has done, but just go in and produce and play and sing if I have to, a Western swing project.
You know, that's interesting, Carl. You know, and we've been trying to do some of that ourselves by introducing new original material. Because when Kurt Ryle and I met, and he said, oh, I'd love to produce a Western swing album with you, Steve. And he said, you know, I played at the Longhorn Ballroom with Dewey Groom, and Leon Roush came in there all the time, and we, you know, so he said the thing is, he goes, and I understand when you're talking about bringing session musicians in for Western swing projects, it narrows the playing field dramatically. You know, it's a lot more sophisticated music because it's jazz, you know, with jazz chords. But he, you know, and so I said, that's fine, but look, there are a lot of people that can already do Faded Love and San Antonio Rose a lot better than I can, and I'm not interested in being another, you know, tribute band. And I'm not saying that from a condescending standpoint. I'm just, you know, but I said, you know, but the thing I understood about Western swing music and why it was so wildly popular when it came out in the 30s and 40s was because it was evolving.
It was.
And I love listening to the stuff that interests me is that really old Milton Brown stuff that has a bluesy feel to it. And of course, Milton was picking up on what he was hearing from Louis Armstrong and you know, the Hot Five. I mean, that old Louis Armstrong stuff in the 30s, you know, that stuff was hot. I mean, he wasn't playing Western swing. He was just swinging that stuff. And, you know, and then he and Bob Wills got together and kind of melded their styles together with the blues fiddle and all that. But anyway, that's interesting. And I would love to work with you on a project like that.
Well, I think that's wonderful. I really do. I've been through so many different phases of music changing that it has evolved into what it is now. And most people, when they're playing music that's out there now, prevalent now, try to go back and reproduce something. They have forgotten what it sounds like. They have forgotten what the tricks are. They have forgotten what was playing when they didn't want to play it because they wanted the new modern type sound. You know, rock and roll was coming up, so they were shoving the Western swing back. But now Western swing, Bob Wills and Hank Thompson, you remember they had horns.
Yeah.
And they were Dixieland and things like that. And so that's all been put on a back burner when we think of Milton Brown and we think of Hank Thompson, we think of strings now in this new modern era. Is that not true?
Yeah, that is true. It is true. Yeah.
And so I would love to go back and work with somebody, and they're out there. I would love to go back and work with somebody that could play that jazzy type stuff to bring in to a modern type Western swing field.
Well, I would love for you and I and Kurt Ryle to have this conversation, and Lord willing, we will.
We can do that.
See where this might go.
There's a guitar player, and he's a friend of Dina Woods up there that played on the house band for the Broadway musical Hair up in New York City. And I've had then he went to L.A. and worked with Van Morrison and some other people. And I would love to get in the studio with him and let him create some of these old sounds that he played to put on his Western swing music.
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about, is thinking outside the box a little bit, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, because that was the beauty of Western swing, right? It was an amalgamation of all these different genres of music. I mean, they were bringing in mariachi influences. They were bringing in polka. They were picking things up as they went along. And somewhere along the line, when rock and roll, I guess when rock and roll came along, which, by the way, arguably the first rock and roll record was "Rock Around the Clock" by Bill Haley. And Bill Haley started out as a Western swing guy, and then created that rockabilly, which is it's like a child of Western swing, basically.
Well, the Western swing kind of went on the byway when people like George Jones and Farron Young and Ray Price come in on the thing, and they started doing this Texas Shuffle.
Yeah,
and Texas Shuffle is a little more danceable, to the average person. People were talking about Western swing dancing is a little hard. Well, all Western swing was it just they picked the pace up a little bit and made people work out a little bit more when they danced. And now I listen to some of this stuff, Alan Jackson, George Strait, Garth Brooks, their type music. They're making people, the few that can dance, they're making them move more. And I think that's one of the things that's missing from our dance halls is the fact that people don't move so much as they get up there and snuggle bunny, because that's what they did 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, we need to get you out to a Steve Marquardt concert then. You'll get out on the dance floor and move.
Yeah. Well, we get you up on stage with us. That'd be fun. So.
Okay.
I love it. Well, we should mention that if folks want to check out anything more about Carl's career, make sure you go to his website, carlvaughanmusic.com. There you can find his discography and keep up with the latest from him. Also find him on Facebook there and stalk him there. And make sure you keep on up with everything that's going on with him. And Carl, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us here for this. This has been a lot of fun.
Boy, I'm telling you, this is the most fun I've had with my clothes on, as a guy used to say.
Well, we need to get you out more often.
Like I said, with these video calls, as long as you're dressed from the waist up, you're in good shape. But Carl, I guess also if people want to see you do your thing, you're out there at the Cowboy Church, Cooke County Cowboy Church, most Sundays, are you not?
I am. Yes, we start at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we've got some great singers and great musicians. I tell everybody this is not just a run-of-the-mill Cowboy Church band. It is not. These guys and girls are all professional, and they show up ready to play, and I can step down, and they're so good that you never miss me. They are some of the top players in the country, and they get it together. And I tell everybody, if you don't have fun, let me know and I give you your money back.
Well, I think that's great. And, how can you beat going out and hearing some really great world-class musicians play great music and get your fill of the gospel?
Absolutely.
So
it's wonderful. It's a wonderful place.
I love it. Well, we certainly thank you. And we hope we can have you on again and go a little deeper on some of this stuff. And hopefully next time we're on here, we'll be talking about a new Western swing project for you.
We hope so.
Yep.
Steve, before we get out of here, what's the latest with the old Clarksville Creative Sound? A lot going on around there.
It's hard for me to keep up with Kurt Ryle, but I talked to him yesterday, and he had Brian Moon in the studio working on a new project. And I think Lonnie Bartmus came through there. I don't know if Brian and Lonnie were working on some stuff together, but Kurt's busy, doing all that in the studio. We've got a new videographer coming in that's going to up our game on the music video front, because as you know, today it's all about creating good content, and we vowed that every release that we do is going to be accompanied by a music video, and we want to get a little more theatrical and cinematic with those things. And so I think we've got a great guy that Kurt found that trained our former videographer guy that kind of is kind of MIA on us. But so lots going on there. We're still working, figuring out the concept for the show that's going to eventually be on American Country Network. And in fact, I'm supposed to have a call with Tommy Snyder this afternoon, the CEO of the network, and we're excited about that and what that can bring as far as exposure to some of our artists and what we do at Clarksville Creative Sound. And who knows, we may bring some television cameras out to the Cooke County Cowboy Church and make that a part of one of our shows, because I think that would play really well. So you never know where we might show up, but I'm certainly going to come out to the Cowboy Church and check that whole thing out. That's for sure.
That'd be wonderful. We'll be glad to have you.
Well, we're one more week closer to February 3rd.
Yes, and looking forward to that. So that's meeting with some promotion people this afternoon to figure out ticket sales, because we got to get those tickets out there pretty soon. We want to push that and get those tickets sold, and looking forward to showcasing some of our younger artists like Evie Mae and Braden Ryle and the Mackenzie and Austin McKetty, along with their family affair band, the McKettys. They'll probably open the show up for us. And then three of those artists, Mackenzie, Austin, and Evie Mae, will then stay over to February 5th, where they will do a taping of the Penny Gilly show. So
how exciting is that?
So they're excited about that. And Carl, I'd love for you to come out for February 3rd, because we're going to be, my band, the A-List band's going to be playing, and we'd love to get you up there and do a few songs if you're up for it, and have you as one of our guests of honor. But we want to pack that National Hall. What a great venue that is. We're excited to have that, and we've got some promotion people that are talking about not only monthly shows, but maybe eventually weekly. You never know. I mean, we want to make that place a destination, kind of the new Panther Hall, without all the cutting and shooting.
Well, that's a neat place too, Steve. I used to work out there in the 50s and 60s some, and it was a neat place then.
Well, it's really, they've taken good care of it. It's got a great dance floor, great food. They've got a full bar with great prices on drinks and things like that. And it's just a good bunch of people out there running that thing. And we put a new sound system in there and a new lighting system. And in return, I've been given use of the hall to do what I want to do with what our vision is, to take this music out to as many people as we can. And we hope to also take it beyond the brick and mortar of the building and do some live stream things as well with the music. And so it's going to be kind of a base of operation. I'm too old to be playing the honky tonks till 2 a.m. and all that kind of stuff. So I prefer more of a family friendly type thing, or, a little more tame. That National Hall is a big hall. The acoustics are great. Now we got that new sound system in there, and it's amazing. So I can't wait, Carl, for you to come out and check it out.
I'll do that.
Excellent. Well, guys, we've been on here for a while here. Want to be respectful of folks' time here. So I think it's about time for us to wrap things up. Before we get out of here, I'd be remiss if I didn't say happy birthday to one of our former Fort Worth Musical Moments guests, also a Clarksville Creative Sound artist. Mr. Eric Diamond is celebrating a birthday today, a great Western swing artist who was there with us recently at National Hall for the Cowtown birthplace of Western Swing Festival. So, Eric, happy birthday to you.
Yeah. Eric didn't let any grass grow under his feet, and he's probably leaving a trail of candy bar wrappers too.
Well, we hope he gets to enjoy some of the little birthday cake and all today. And that's a good thing. When your birthday's on Friday, you get the whole weekend to celebrate it. So hopefully
and Eric's new album, Kurt Ryle produced it and wrote a lot of the songs and collaborated with Eric on that. And but that's a great Western swing album, great musicianship on that thing, and it's doing very, very well. Eric's got a good following out there. So he's one of the hardest working guys out there. He's doing something just about every day somewhere.
Absolutely. So happy birthday to him. We humbly ask that you would go to the Tractors and Troubadours podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, or at ruralstrongmedia.com. We just dropped episode 108 today, and it's featuring some great ag programming, as well as we're doing Christmas music all throughout the holiday season here this week. It's Clarksville Creative Sound recording artist Terry LeMaster, Flatbed Santa. So make sure you go check that out. Go check out 107 last week. Our man Steve Marquardt here was on there with Swinging Santa Claus, and we're going to be playing that Christmas music throughout the holiday season. So please go and subscribe to that and share it around. Again, Tractors and Troubadours at ruralstrongmedia.com, wherever you get your podcast. Also, join us daily on Rural Strong Radio, which is our 24/7 streaming radio station found at ruralstrongmedia.com. or on the Live 365 streaming radio app. We're playing the best in traditional country music, mixed in with a little Western swing, bluegrass, Southern rock, inspirational music, and now your country Christmas favorites. So make sure you go check that out. We got a lot of Steve Marquardt on there, a lot of great independent artists on there, and we'll sneak some Carl Vaughan on there as well. And we got quite a history lesson of music on there. So make sure you go and check that out. Also, as we tell you every week, 2 special shows on Sunday starting at 9 a.m. Central. It's Sunday's Kind of Country with Robbie Lynn, 3 great hours of inspirational country music. I come in about 11:45 a.m. Central and do about a 15-minute short set. And that leads us up to noon Central, where we bring in our good friend Billy Bowles with Billy Bowles Swingin' Country. He plays 2 hours of the best traditional country music and Western swing. And I was going through the going through the comments here, and I saw a comment on here. I am world radio premiering the first Western swing truck driving song tomorrow on the original show on KSSL FM, and then with us on Sunday and also on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central. You can catch that. So he says he's consulted with numerous Western swing folks, and no one can think of another thus far. So
what about Truck Driving Man by Red Seagull? Isn't that Western swing, or is that more honky tonk?
Oh boy, now we're going to open up Pandora's box.
Yeah, I don't know. We may have something to say about that.
We'll have to.
And I would never go head to head with Billy Bowles because he's got a harder head than I do. But and we love what Billy's doing. He's been a fantastic friend and supporter of all of us.
Also, he is world premiering a new Christmas release from Clarksville creative sound recording artist Evie May tomorrow. So awesome. Make sure you check that out. And you can also, again, check that out at noon Central on Sunday on Rural Strong Radio, and again Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central. So plenty of great opportunities to catch Billy Bowles and Evie May and cast of thousands here. So make sure you go check all that stuff out. Hey, this show automatically archives, so if you missed any bit of it, you can go check it out in its entirety. Make sure you're following us on all the socials, the Fort Worth Musical Moments Facebook group, the Clarksville Creative Sound Facebook group, and the Rural Strong Media Facebook page, so you don't miss a minute of the action. We'll be back again next Friday at 10 a.m. Central. We'll have another good show lined up for you here. We got some special shows coming up through the holidays, some great interviews that we did with legendary actor Barry Corbin, and also the king of the Get Steel, Junior Brown.
Yeah, and what was I going to? Oh, you didn't mention. Did you mention Kurt Riles' Road Stories?
No, I didn't mention it because we don't have another one pinned down yet. I can't get that guy pinned down. We need to get him pinned down on another Road Stories because his public awaits.
Yeah, and he's got to wear that jacket too. I love that jacket. But you got to put on your inspirational short set. You got to add Jesus by My Side. That song, Carl, is in my head now. I can't get it out of my head, which is a good thing. So,
well, you know what? We can do that this week. We'll throw that in the mix this week here. I'll put it down. We'll be recording that later on here, and we'll get that song in there. We like to have a nice mix of songs. We're doing a lot of holiday songs this time of year, but we can slide that one in there for sure.
Jesus is the reason for the season.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I hope people don't forget that. Well, I tell you what, we're going to get out of here again. Carl, thank you so much for the time. We look forward to seeing you down the road.
Well, thank you, and y'all have a blessed Christmas too.
Thank you, Carl. We'll see you soon. I'm sure we'll be talking. We got a lot to talk about.
Okay.
And Steve, the second we hang up here is going to be left to his own devices. He's a bachelor this weekend, so we'll be praying for you, and hope you make it through okay.
Yeah, I hadn't had any major fires or anything like that yet. But Jill won't be home till Sunday, so anything can happen.
So if you're in the area, make sure you keep an eye on Steve here, and we'll reconvene again next Friday at 10 a.m. Central for another Fort Worth Musical Moments. Until then, keep riding tall in the saddle. Make it a great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
You've been watching Fort Worth Musical Moments, a production of Rural Strong Media and Clarksville Creative Sound, copyright 2023. Please join the Fort Worth Musical Moments Facebook group and join us each Friday at 10 a.m. Central as we introduce you to another key figure in Fort Worth's musical heritage.